Good afternoon and good morning for many of you on the call. Thank you for taking some time to join us today as we wrap up this FAQ series. We've gone quite a ways here in the 6th part, starting at how to get started, moving into the candidacy and how we go about figuring out which projects may be of good quality or are in your best interest, where the energy savings pay off the greatest. Giving you those details, working into some of the depths of even our energy models and the details with that of our internal crew and how we're factoring and figuring out your energy savings, the audit process with our crew members along the way of what it looks like on the site. And now we're excited here to kind of wrap up and talk through what it looks like closing out a project, the guarantee that we offer that comes on every project that's energy serviced, and really just thanking every one of you out there that's joined us. Some hard times this year, and if we're providing the content that's valuable enough to take 30 minutes out of your day, then we appreciate it. Before we get started, as always, use the question box on the side panel. We'll take questions towards the end in the Q&A. This entire recording is happening, so it'll be available to everybody in attendance about an hour after, and then for those not in attendance, we'll send out on a per request, or it'll come out tomorrow. At the end of this, we would love to hear your feedback throughout the entire series, specific to today, anything that you can provide us to continue supporting you out there in the field. There will be a small survey, and without further ado, I will pass it over to April and we can get started.
All right, thanks, Billy. So today, everyone, I am going to touch on a few of the things that we learned in the past 5 webinars and just kind of give a brief overview of all of those. And then we'll move on to talk about how we wrap up a project and what the guarantee involved is. And then also we have Jake Smith and John Harrington on as well to answer any questions you may have that didn't get asked during our past webinar series, or if you have thought about things a little more and have any more questions. So we have representatives from engineering and operations to answer any questions that you have on the end along with me. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about Aeroseal duct sealing and what our process is. So just like we talked about in series 1, Aeroseal is a patented technology that seals up the HVAC ductwork from the inside out. So basically, we're pressurizing the duct and we're sitting in an aerosol sealant that seals up all the holes and gaps. We typically get about 90 to 95% of the leakage, and our payback is around 2 to 7 years on those projects. And like we're going to talk about later, it's both verifiable and guaranteed to you. So this is just a picture of Aeroseal, what it looks like before and after. So a lot of the leakage that we're talking about is in the connections with those ducts. So this is just a picture of the aerosolized sealant being after it solidifies, and it becomes a substance. I like to compare it to what happens when you get a credit card in the mail, what sticks that credit card to the paper. Our sealant, a little more tougher than that, but very similar in substance. It's a vinyl acetate polymer, the same thing that's in babies' pacifiers, hairspray, chewing gum, so nothing that you have to worry about being toxic or hurting anyone in the facility. We seal up holes up to 5/8 of an inch. So it could be a gap about a foot long, but 5/8 of an inch in diameter. And with that, it holds between 7 and 10 inches of water column. So again, why we care about duct leakage, why it matters for your projects and the buildings that you work in every day, is because air ducts are leaky. There were a couple different studies done, one in California and one in Florida, and they came to the exact same conclusion that like commercial ductwork is especially leaky, typically more than 30%. ASHRAE tells us that if you're looking at all of your buildings, 75% of that ductwork leaks 10 to 25%, so pretty significant. There was another study done at the Lawrence Berkeley Labs the national lab, that told us that even newly installed systems, so brand new buildings, typically have 10 to 30% of duct leakage. So this is widespread. This is why all of the things that we talked about in the earlier series matter so much, because we're losing a ton of energy based on duct leakage. As a matter of fact, the Building Commissioning Agency did a study on the top 10 building faults, right? And so there's some things that you would see on there that you would agree with, I'm sure. Lights being left on when the building is unoccupied, the HVAC being running when people aren't in there, controls issues, all that sort of thing. But actually, duct leakage is the top dollar amount of what happens when you lose, and extra cost that you're paying in a building due to duct leakage. So $2.9 billion a year is lost just due to duct leakage. So like we talked about in the webinar number 2, if you want to go back and listen, how do we identify buildings with leaky ducts? Like Ashley says, 75% of ducts leak 10 to 25%. So we care about them all the time. But there's some things that we like to look out for if we're trying to make this a good energy project. And those are larger buildings. Anything with high occupancy, high outside air, the higher the static pressure, the better for us. Older buildings, and then anything with dedicated exhaust. We also like to say anything above 10 horsepower or so is going to be a great candidate. Anything from 5 to 10, send over and let us look at it, and we can figure out if that's going to make a great project or not. So these are a couple of the installation examples that we've done. So all across the world, we are installing Aeroseal in all different types of buildings, anything from hospitals, amusement parks, hotels, colleges and universities, K through 12 buildings. So this is widespread. We do it in clean rooms for Pfizer all the time, but all sorts of different applications. So I was going to go through a few case studies and how this all worked. This is a government office building, a large one in Washington, D.C., and they had a large shaft that was incredibly leaky, and only 50% of the air was actually reaching those endpoints. So we were able to get them a measured savings that they did themselves of $102,000 a year, just by sealing up the ductwork in that one shaft. The payback was less than 2 years, around 1.5 years, but it also improved comfort in the building because, as you can imagine, the air, if it's not making it to those endpoints, it was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. So we were able to solve all of those problems for them. Another example is just a school building in Indiana. They actually had 40% of leakage in that building. So we were able to leverage a payback of 3.3 years, and really excited about that project in a K through 12 schools. High schools, junior high is usually really good candidates for us. So just like we talked about in actually webinars 3 through 5, Aeroseal provides a turnkey solution for you. So we want to ensure anytime you are looking at Aeroseal for your building or any kind of project that we're there for you every step of the way. The first thing we do is we gather information so that we can ensure to go out and provide you a good audit for those buildings. So we'll start to ask for information for energy modeling. We'll start running preliminary audit or models. We can show you paybacks even before we go back and make sure we're in line with your project. We are also able to plan those projects to make sure that we are during the audit process, we're estimating the amount of leakage that's there, and we're inputting that into the model. When we actually go in and do the construction, like Jake talked about, and the last webinar, we are able to come in and actually do the Aeroseal. We're also able to do duct cleaning if you need it, or any kind of repairs that are needed in those systems. We can provide that for you. And then at the end, our engineering team is available to measure, provide the M&V for you. So the entire time we're sealing the ducts, we are estimating, or we are measuring how much leakage is there before and how much leakage is there when we're done. After the project is over, we're taking all that data and put it back into those energy models to prove out those savings that we gave to you at the beginning. So how we confirm those results. So just like I said, this is our certificate of completion. So every time we do a section of ductwork, we're telling you how much leakage is there when we started sealing and how much leakage is there when we're done. We compile all of those together for each building or system, and we find how much percentage of leakage was there and what percentage we sealed up. And like I said, those inputs go back into those energy models. So this is something that eliminates any other verification. We tell you what we're going to do, and then we have data that we did it. Our product lasts more than 30 years, so it's nothing that you have to install every 5 years. There's no maintenance. Once we do it once, the building is good and we can just move forward. We are typically sealing about 85 to 95% of that duct, the leakage in the duct. So very, very low leakage levels upon completion. And then to make it even easier for you to use in our in any performance contracting space, we guarantee those projects. So what that means for you is that if we come in during an audit and we estimate leakage to be 15%, and for some reason it was 13%, we will actually seal additional duct in that building, so exhaust or another building if it was not part of it, but we will make you whole until we get to that amounts that we told you was there in the audit. So we're here to support you and make sure that what you're saying to your customer actually happens from Aeroseal. So that is all I had today. I wanted to make it quick so we could answer any questions you had from any of the other webinars, or anything about our guarantee or how we wrap up projects. So thank you so much, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Yeah, thank you, April. Yeah, lots of recap, lots of pull through. So just a reminder, the questions box down on the bottom right, or depending on where your screen's at, if you're using a mobile device, use the questions box, type those in, we'll answer. So one of the questions that came in just around the time, could you speak a little bit more to the guarantee of making whole?
The what? I'm sorry?
You mentioned I think the verbiage you used and where it's on here, making a contract whole.
Yeah.
So if something's missed and how that process works.
Yeah, so just so you know, we've only had to do this twice in my history of Aeroseal, so we're doing a really good job at the auditing process and estimating how much leakage it is. But the way it works is that during a project, if for some reason we estimated that we would seal 90% of the 15% leakage that was there, and for example, we only found 12% of leakage, right? So there wasn't as much energy savings because there wasn't as much leakage as was estimated at the beginning. So what we would do is we would work with our customer to find other systems in their project that we could seal up the duct to make up that additional 3%. Either we could find exhaust systems. Sometimes we can go beyond the VAV boxes. Other times there's buildings that didn't really have a great payback, but still would get us to where we needed to be. And so we would seal up as many of those as we got to that leakage amount that we estimated at the beginning.
Okay. What is the longest time frame for a contract guarantee?
Yeah, so we the guarantee, I think they're talking about warranty. So we are able to, we started our warranties on commercial projects at 3 years. For any performance contract or anything else, we can extend that to 15 years. Or if your contract is longer, 20 years or something like that, with your customer, we're able to extend our warranty to match the life of your contract with your customer. So we are very flexible on that warranty and making sure that you're covered. And there's never a period of time where you have a contract with your customer and the Aeroseal warranty isn't in place. Because Aeroseal is a once and done kind of situation, we stand by it holding up for the life of your contract, and we have no issues extending those warranties for that.
In a previous webinar, you mentioned cost deferment. I think maybe that's in relation to duct repair versus replacement or equipment replacement, maybe, April?
Yes. Yeah. So that's a really good point. So with Aeroseal, we calculate energy savings for you. So we tell you, hey, if you seal up your existing ductwork, this is how much you can save by doing so. What we also are able to do is talk about, hey, or compare Aeroseal and saving those ducts that are in place versus replacing the ductwork. So there was another project I probably gave an example of where they had a quote for millions of dollars to replace all the ductwork in the building. We were able to come in and clean the ductwork, do minor mechanical repairs in that ductwork, and seal the ductwork and leave all of that duct all in place versus doing a complete duct replacement. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about cost avoidance and really being able to salvage that duct that's in the system.
I feel like this is a frequent one we always get. What is the cost of an audit?
Yeah, so that's great. I probably should have pointed this out more. We do auditing for free. So anytime we come out and audit a project, we do that at no cost to you. Our goal is just to show you how much savings you can get from Aeroseal, and there's no cost for those audits or anything until, you know, the construction is really the only cost. We're doing all of this to build Aeroseal in the marketplace and just make sure that people are using it in all their projects.
Okay. How far are we willing to travel for a project?
Yeah, so we travel around the world for our projects. We actually have a project that hopefully will happen the beginning of next year in Japan. That's a federal project for one of the ESCOs. So we are able to travel, you know, far and wide with our team. And then if there's something in an area that needs local labor, we have commercial Aeroseal service providers all around the world as well. So we can provide that labor from them on top of our team if needed.
Okay. Question on here. If we had a project that needed immediate response, how far are we booked out?
Jake, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it would depend. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But currently, I mean, we're booked through the rest of the year. You know, if it was a smaller thing where something we could jump in there for a couple of days, we can work with those a little bit more than if it's a large scale project. So it just kind of depends on the size.
Yeah, so reach out to us. We're here to help. You know, we will do everything we can to ensure you get taken care of.
Okay. For timeline, how long does it take from about beginning to end?
Yeah, so we're really on these ESCO projects or any performance contract, we are at the mercy of the ESCO sales cycle. So we come in anytime from the time that people are responding to RFPs all the way through, you know, when they're doing investment grade audits to when they're ready to construction, which, you know, as you know, sometimes takes up 18 months, 2 years. However, if it's a project that is, you know, ready to go, we can get auditors out to you within a week or two, depending on you know, size and how many buildings we have to audit. We can get estimates turned around within, I would say, that same, you know, 2-week kind of schedule, and they would be working on those at the same time that the auditors would. And then from there, we'll give you a final proposal for the work. So, you know, at the most, 2 to 4 weeks, if that's how short of a turnaround time you need. We give estimates that we get called, and John may kill me, but we get calls and we have estimates for them by the end of that week or sometimes the next day. So if you have any questions about, you know, whether we can help you in a project or you have a quick turnaround, reach out to us. We are constantly expanding our team based on demand. So right now we have 2 full-time auditors, we have 2 full-time estimators, and we have a robust team. Jake has 3 full crews running around doing Aeroseal projects, and that's just growing. If you go to the Aeroseal website, you can see how many jobs we're hiring for. So with all of those resources, though, helps us respond to you in a timely fashion and make sure that we have the resources that you need to get things done.
Perfect. I think this one was mentioned in an earlier series. What is the average payback?
Yeah, paybacks range anywhere from, we say on average 2 to 7 years. It just depends on where you are in the country, what kind of energy rate you are, how big of a fan we're looking at. If it's a complicated situation like a hospital, sometimes that takes some more labor to, you know, so it varies. I know 5 years is a pretty big range, but that's our average.
What is the, I guess out of curiosity, what's the shortest ROI we've had?
Yeah, so that would be the project that I talked about in Washington, D.C. That was 1.5 years. And then probably the longest, I think we had one project that had a 10-year payback, I believe. And, you know, that was just low energy rates. It was a high school, not a very, you know, big system. But, you know, they range all the time.
Perfect. What is the minimal viable project scope? I found the economics don't work at a smaller building.
Yeah, so it's more about the size. And John, do you want to talk to this about the size of the system is more than the size of the building?
Yeah, sure, April. Yeah, like April said, you know, it seems like, you know, we can make a unit with 5 horsepower motor work if the hours are high and the rates are really high. So, you know, and that's, you know, I would say, you know, 8,000 CFM seems to be the minimum requirement for a, you know, for a 7-year payback plus or minus, you know, a couple years. But yeah, like April said, if you have something smaller than 10 horsepower, we're happy to take a look at it. I mean, we could tell pretty quick with pretty accurate results whether it's a you know, a feasible project for you based on your required paybacks.
Yeah, and just to tack on to what John's saying, we have, there's no risk to you to send over every project and have us look at it and see if it's going to be viable or not. So, you know, we're here to support you in those and send them over. And John's team does a great job of really at first glance knowing, hey, this may not be good unless they're worried about indoor air quality or have some comfort issues or worried about replacing the duct or, but for an energy, this may not be the best, right? And so we can turn that around pretty quickly for you. So send over everything that you are questioning, and we'll gladly take a look.
So you mentioned hospitals earlier. Speaking of hospitals, what is the safety of the product?
Yeah, so I actually have that here. It's a vinyl acetate polymer, so it's UL certified, meets all the ASTM compliance. There's no VOC off-gassing after it cures. So it takes 2 hours to cure, and then there's no VOC off-gassing moving forward. While we're doing the installation, the VOCs are in the same classification as installing new carpet. So nothing that's going to hurt anyone or be toxic. It's very safe. This is something we do, like I said, clean rooms, hospitals, senior living facilities, prisons, all sorts of different, a lot of DOD facilities, so all sorts of different things. But yeah, and because we don't line or coat the duct, we're only going to where those holes are. We don't use a ton of sealant as well. So it's not, you know, gallons and gallons of sealant being used usually.
And then it looks like a part B to that question. How does this interrupt any operations inside of a hospital?
Yeah, so like I said, we prefer to work after hours and on weekends because we have to shut down the air handler. We're kind of in the way, it's a little loud. But if we're working in senior living facilities or hospitals or prisons, it's, you know, 24/7 operation. So while we do have to, while we're sealing up the duct, we have to shut down that air handler. And we have to put the fire alarms in test because they could go off. That is the major impact. So we prefer to just move occupants out of that area for the period of time that we're doing the duct sealing and then move them back. Or, you know, we work with facilities, so all sorts of creative solutions to ensure that we're not impacting the run of the hospital. If we're doing ERs that are running 24/7, you know, we'll do one ER and block and inject and then bring, so the other ER is available and then, you know, go back and forth. So like I said, we are used to dealing with those kinds of things. If you have just a normal high school or college facility or something like that, office building, like I said, we prefer to work after hours on weekends just so we're not impacting anyone.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of the list that we have here. So I guess we can go into wrap-ups. If anybody has additional questions, please plug them in. But otherwise, April, I think you had your information up here. Just as a reminder, there is a survey at the end just to let us know, you know, how the series was, what we can provide for future content, how we can better serve the industry and your needs. Taking up valuable time from you, but being mindful of that and trying to create the most amount of value. And then, yeah, if you guys have any project needs or anything, here's April's information right here on the screen. Stay tuned for future FAQ series, and others, I think we're gonna maybe look into deep diving on case studies and some very hands-on personal things that, you know, relate better. But otherwise, I can pass it over to April for any closing words.
Yeah, I would just encourage everyone to listen to any of the older webinars in this series if you have any deeper questions, but then also feel free to reach out to me. And if you have a project or if you just have any more questions about anything we've said so far, we are here to make this as easy as possible for you. So feel free to contact us. We will be sending out information about our next series probably in the next couple weeks, so we invite you to attend those. And in the comments, if you liked these 30-minute chunks better than our, let us know so we know which way to go for the next round of webinars. But I appreciate you listening, and I look forward to working with you all in the future.
Thank you.